Hi, I'm retired NYPD Detective Vic Ferrari, and welcome to NYPD Through the Looking Glass, where you'll get unique insight into the New York City Police Department. Before we get started, please check out my Amazon author page, where you'll find my series of behind-the-scenes NYPD books for $10 paperback and $2.99 ebook download, including NYPD Law and Disorder, where you discover the cranky crackhead robbery suspect that was pummeled in a police lineup by his fellow fillers. That's a true story. My partner and I lock up this guy for a series of robberies. We put him in a lineup. And when you put somebody in a lineup, it's usually street people that are standing in there with them. You give them $20 and they sit there for 20 minutes. Well, anyway, our crackhead was getting mouthy. I'm on the other side of the one-way glass with the victim. The next thing you know, two of the fillers get up and start smacking the shit out of the robbery suspect. My partner and I had to run in there behind the one-way glass room and break up the fight. So anyway, it's a good read. Check out the book, NYPD Law and Disorder. So on today's episode, we'll chat with a former NYPD Fugitive Task Force member, Michael Derosa. Hi, Mike. How are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm very good, Vic. How are you?
I'm great. Mike, tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to the New York City Police Department.
Well, what brought me to the New York City Police Department was I lived in a small town called Sloatsburg, New York, in Rockland County, about 50 minutes from the city. And my neighbor and his team was shot by Larry Davis from the 4-4 precinct, I believe. And I just saw the media and the support that he received from the NYPD when he was shot. And that was the day that I said, I want to be a detective in the New York City Police Department.
You know, people forget about that, but here's the thing. Larry Davis he was a badass. He was running around the Bronx doing home invasion robberies, ripping off drug dealers, and he killed a couple of people. So you had Bronx Homicide and the 4-2 detective squad searching for this guy. They located him in an apartment on Fulton Avenue in the 4-2 precinct, and they knew he was a badass, so they went with emergency service. That's like our SWAT team. They went in there to get him. Larry Davis comes out, guns ablazing in his sister's apartment, and I think he had a shotgun, shoots up the place, hits a couple of cops, and escapes. Well, now it's in the press. It's a big deal. There's a huge manhunt for Larry Davis. He's finally apprehended, I think, a couple of weeks later on Webster Avenue on the 4-2-4-6 border. And somehow he's able to obtain counsel of Ron Kuby and William Kunstler, who, you know, you like them or not, they're good attorneys, and they were able to convince a Bronx jury that Larry Davis was defending himself, that the police were going in there to kill him, and he had no choice. He was justified in shooting his way out of the apartment. And the ironic thing is he beat that case, but he had so many robbery and homicide charges on him, he wasn't going anywhere. So he winds up on Rikers Island, which my brother Fredo was a correction officer at the time. And Fredo had the pleasure of guarding Larry Davis. My brother was in the Rikers Island. It's called the All-Star team or the All-Star unit, and he had all the whole high-profile guys like Greg Scarpa, the mob hitman, that guy Rankowitz that killed his girlfriend and then cooked her and then served her at a soup kitchen. Yeah, my brother's got a wild career. I'd love to get him on the show. But anyway, you join the NYPD, and you become a transit cop to start. Tell us what that was like.
Well, I was sworn in at J Street or Gold Street. I can't remember. And everybody. Okay, I got to go back, Vic. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
So I was told to be at the Queen's applicant investigations probably at like 8 o'clock. Now, I was upstate New York. I've never been in the city or I've driven in the city by myself. I was given directions, and I see this line around the block. So I get on the line, and I took a multi-agency test where you could be assigned to transit, housing, or NYPD. So I'm listening. I didn't want transit. I didn't want housing. I wanted NYPD. So I'm online, and I hear the guys in front of me saying housing, NYPD, NYPD, and I'm listening to the order that is going, and I am supposed to be NYPD, and out of the blue they say transit, and I'm like, what the frig is transit? Everybody's like, oh, tunnel rat, tunnel rat, tunnel rat. I'm like, this is going to be a great career. And they whisk us off, and they show us what Chief Bratton He was the NYPD transit chief at the time. We were the first ones given 9 millimeters. We were the first ones given the equipment that they utilize now in the NYPD.
Yeah, you were in transit during a good time because transit sucked. I mean, there's dead spots down there where the radios didn't work. You guys are often alone. You know what I mean? So if you're fighting with a suspect on a platform, help is not going to be. I remember 1013s coming over in transit, and it was like looking for a needle in a haystack at a busy subway station. Then you'd see some poor transit cop behind like a pillar in the fight of his life, and then you kind of jump in there and help him. But Bratton was hired away from Boston PD to run our transit police, and he certainly was instrumental in turning around transit. I mean, he made it a place where people actually wanted to work. Tell us about that, what he did.
He just gave we felt good going to work. We had the 9 millimeters. We looked good. He revitalized the radio system. We were given patrol cars. We were like the little stepbrother of the NYPD, just in the subways.
Yeah, like you said, transit was like, and every transit cop would roll over after a couple of years and come into the NYPD. So they made it very difficult because they didn't want to lose. Housing was the same way. They didn't want to lose manpower, so they made you take the police exam again, and then you had to go through you had to go through a background check again. You didn't go through the police academy, but I mean, and then they made you go through field training. Like they really broke your balls. They didn't want you to make that jump over to the NYPD. Yes. And transit had its challenges. Like I remember as a city cop later in my career, they gave us a one-day training course. We went to District 12, and it was a one-day tunnel training course. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Like they march us into a tunnel, and we were talking about this off air. Every 100 feet, there's a blue light with a switch where you can turn the power off. But then the power comes back on after 3 minutes, so don't get hit by a train. I remember there was rats down there like the size of raccoons. There was homeless people like living down there. I'm like, what the hell? Like, it was the craziest thing.
And we had, like, I used to walk the subway tunnels from station to station with a group of guys looking at the homeless and just figuring out what's going on under the city.
You know, nowadays, the way cameras are, if you would have taken photos, you'd have a book.
Oh yeah.
Just there was like villages down there. I couldn't believe like in those little alcoves, people were sleeping there. And the unique thing about transit, so before the Metro cards, you used to purchase these little metal subway tokens, and you drop them in a slot to unlock the turnstile. Well, the Skells figured out that if they put their mouths on top of the slot and sucked, they'd pull a coin up and then resell it for like half the price. Did you ever catch a token sucker in the act?
No, we used to catch the guys taking the metal bands off of shipping containers, and they'd stick rat glue on the end of it, and they'd stick it in the turnstile or the token box and pull the tokens up, and so sell them to the bodegas or somebody on the street, like coming down to the subway for half the price.
It's funny you should say that because I remember a couple of times going into a bogey and they'd have like on the side, like where the guy would make change, you'd see a bunch of tokens. Like they were selling the tokens. So like say a token was $1, they got it for 50 cents and they were selling it for like 75 cents. It was like a whole underground market. It's a lot of work for a quarter, but whatever. So in the subway, again, like I said, there's unique challenges in there. I mean, have you ever seen someone electrocuted down there, like pissing on the third rail or touch the third rail?
No, I had a guy that wanted to commit suicide, and it was at 145th Street and Lenox Avenue. So he jumped in front of the train, but the moron jumped on the north end of the northbound station. So he didn't even get hit by the train. He jumped in front of it. He broke his leg. Then he wanted to die so bad, he grabbed the third rail. And all it did was blow his arm off. He couldn't even die.
He lived?
And I actually felt bad for him.
Well, I would too. I mean, that's a sad sack. A guy that he blew his arm off?
Yes. Yeah.
People don't realize, man, that electricity goes into one place. It's got to come out somewhere else. And it's wild. I guess by the way your makeup is or whatever. It blows body parts off.
Right.
And tell us about what a space job is.
It's called a space case.
Oh,
At
space
168th Street and Amsterdam Avenue, a guy was on the roadbed, which is what they call under the train, before the train came in, and he hopped up to jump onto the platform, and before he got up, the train came in. So your body spins one way, the top of your body spins one way, and the bottom of your body spins another way. So your organs are actually sealed. And then they call ESU, which is like you said, our SWAT team or extrication team, and they put airbags under between the subway train and the platform, and they inflate the airbags, which lets the guy come up. But once they inflate the airbags, all the body organs fall out of the body.
So basically,
they would
you're alive. The pressure of the train pinning you against the platform is keeping you alive. And the second
we gave the guy a beer and a cigarette. That's what he wanted. And then we notified his family. He was able to talk to them, but they knew once they put the airbag in, he was going to die.
You know, it's funny, in the police academy, and this is pre-cell phones, they had told us stories about that they would hand the victim a paper and pencil or paper and pen to write out their final wishes, or, tell my mother I loved her or my wife I loved her. I guess nowadays they can put them on a cell phone. But how often does that happen?
I don't know. It happened to me once, and it was enough.
Yeah, I could see what you're saying. So tell us a couple of crazy transit stories.
That was a text. My first funny transit story was I'm driving with a salty guy, like probably 25 years on the job. I had the patrol car. I was so happy. It was a Sunday morning. I'm like a real NYPD guy.
You're above ground.
And we're driving. Yeah. We're driving through Fort Tyrone Park. You know what? In Inwood.
Yeah. I used to hang out up in Inwood.
So we're driving, and we see a guy in a hospital gown. That's it. A hospital gown, naked, tied in the back. He's looking behind a tree, and I say, "Oh, what do we got?" And the salty guy says, "We ain't got nothing. No one called 911. We ain't got nothing. I'm not getting involved in this with an EDP on a Sunday morning. Forget about it, kid." So I left. I went with him down Fort Tyrone Park.
And you never checked to see if they were escaping. It's so funny. Cops
I was running the computer to see if there were any jobs, and there was nothing.
It's funny. You run into people sometimes, or something goes running past you, and you go, "What the fuck? What was that?" And it's like, in the blink of an eye, they're gone. Or like you said, it's the first time you're out of the subway. You feel like, I'm a city cop now. We're driving around. This guy's got 25 years in transit. He's driving around with blinders on. He just wants fresh air.
Yep.
That's all he wants. Like, "Listen, kid, I've been with old timers like that. Listen, kid, we're not getting involved with this. Just look the other way."
My favorite story is I'm working with a guy that the desk sergeant told me, "Look out for him. He's crazy." So they put him with me. Why? I don't know. We're running fare beats at 182nd and the Grand Concourse in the 4-6.
Yeah.
Fare beats were like looking out of a porthole, watching the guys jump the subway fare. There was a robbery condition. Guy robbing people with Uzis. So we jump out of the room looking for the fare beat, and he's there. So we got our hands on our gun. We're ready. Put your hands up. Put your hands up. And he puts his hands up, and in between his jacket, we see an Uzi fall side to side. So we're amped up to the 9th degree.
Oh, yeah.
Get down on the ground, get on the ground, get on the ground. And he's jumping up in the air. And he goes, "It's a toy, it's a toy." And you heard the gun fall. It was plastic. It was a kid's toy. That doesn't mean he was not doing robberies, but it means we don't have to shoot him. It's basically what it meant. So the psycho says, "Hey, buddy, you want to get the holidays off? Sir, please pick up that toy." And he's like, "No," and he goes prone on this because he thinks, like, if he picks up the gun and my psycho partner shoots him, he thinks he's going to get a medal. So I'm like, dude, we got a collar and probably going to close out a robbery pattern. So let's just take it what it is. And so we collared him, and that was a good, funny story.
It is, and at least you got the heads up by the outgoing platoon sergeant that says, "Watch this guy, he's nuts."
Yes.
I've had that happen a couple of times, especially when you're new to a command, either a rookie or you get transferred somewhere, and you don't know the lay of the land. You might get the heads up from one or two of your friends, "Watch this guy, watch that guy," but they don't know everybody in the precinct. And like you said, I've worked with guys that were mentally unstable, unfortunately, a few times, and it's like, just like you said, the guy, you got an easy collar, and the guy turns to you, "You want the holidays off?" It's like, no, don't shoot this guy.
He looked right at me and said, "We're going to get medals." And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I just want to throw cuffs on this guy and get 8 hours of overtime and an attaboy
that's it,
from
man.
the commanding officer.
That's it.
Yeah, I don't want to be tied up for 24 hours talking to a district attorney with a stenographer, about my actions, and then I got to go to grand jury a week from now where I might get indicted for killing this poor son of a... You know how it goes. So Bratton turned things around. He was the first to realize that people that are committing crimes and then get warrants, if you pick them up while they're out wanted, you take them off the playing field. And he was big with that in transit. That's how you got involved with warrants in transit, right?
That's correct. My friend, who later turned out to be a lieutenant in IAB, they were going around everybody asking who wanted to go to warrants, and he said, "I don't want it." So then the next person was me, and everybody says, "NYPD don't volunteer for anything." Well, I volunteered for warrants. It was the best decision of my life. In the NYPD.
How long were you in there for, transit warrants?
I would think about four or 5 years.
You got any stories?
We were
from
doing
there?
investigations. Say again, Vic?
Well, how long were you in transit warrants? A couple of years?
Yes.
And then eventually, I mean, you got to work in a really prestigious unit, the Fugitive Task Force, which is a multi-agency, a lot of federal money task force. Tell us what that was like. That's like the major league.
Yeah, to me, it was the major league. It was the apex of my career. We would talk in warrants and say, "Just give me a car and free reign. I could find anybody. You can find anybody if you're looking, and we found everybody. I had a 100% clearance ratio.
Oh, that's excellent. Finding fugitives, and I did a little bit of that because I think I was telling you I had an informant that used to tell me guys that were wanted that had been previously deported on federal crimes and then snuck back into the country, and then I would hand them over to you guys. I never worked with you, but I worked with a couple of guys in your unit. And those federal task force, the great thing is you get all these toys, and I don't believe any federal agency is better than the NYPD. What sets the federales What sets the federales apart from the NYPD is their unlimited budget. They have all this money for software, all these toys that makes law enforcement work just that much easier. And then you put in the experience of NYPD guys who, in my opinion, I think are the greatest detectives in the world and the greatest investigators in the world. And you put them in there with the feds, you got something special.
Before the task force, I want to shout out to the violent felony squads, the borough level violent felony squads, because that's where you have to go to before you get to the regional fugitive task force. So the violent felony squad guys were doing all of this without the Fed money. Without the Fed cars.
That's where you cut your teeth.
Yep, that's where you cut your teeth.
And it's unfortunate because a lot of times you got guys that are working in units like that and they're really good and they just don't get the opportunity. And it's like, Man, I'm sure you know guys that, you went on to the Fugitive Task Force, like they should have picked up this guy too, and they should have picked up that guy too, that they would have been great here.
Yes.
There's just, unfortunately, just so many slots. So tell us a couple of stories. You told me a couple of really good stories. Tell the one about the NYPD chief's son that was wanted for a series of shootings. That's the one with the BMW?
Yes, that's correct.
That's a great story.
A Nassau County cop is driving, I don't remember where, but he sees a guy changing his license plates on a late model BMW at night. So he whips a U-turn and a vehicle pursuit turns in going back to New York City. The Nassau County cop flips his car and the bad guy gets into Manhattan. Like, I guess he was going up the Harlem River Drive because he got off on Amsterdam Avenue towards the George Washington Bridge, and he clips it yellow cab. So the yellow cab driver, after being interviewed, he said he saw the bad guy get out, put a gun in his waistband, and walk away. The yellow cab driver is smart. He goes, I am not going to get covered by my insurance company. This car is stolen, so he starts rifling through the car to see how he can make his nut to pay taxi back. He gets in the trunk, and there is a body in the trunk. It's actually still alive at this point. Later died. But we found out through Manhattan Homicide that he was 8 hours looking, trying to buy the BMW from a guy in New Jersey. This went on. So then it got thrown to me. And I have to locate this guy. So I interview the chief where his son is. And the chief says to me, the best thing that can happen is you kill him. The second thing, no. The best thing is he kills himself. The second best thing is for you to kill him because he's a bad guy and I don't want my son like that.
And he's talking about his kid.
Yes, he's talking about his son. And his son had huge amounts of robberies, vehicle robberies with guns.
So he was like a professional carjacker.
Yes, he was a professional carjacker, I guess. And this was his third strike. He was going away. He knew that.
Yeah, that's a dangerous guy.
We track him down to Jacksonville, Florida, and the Regional Fugitive Task Force in Jacksonville, Florida, goes up on the phone, and we find out that he ordered Domino's Pizza. So we interview him, the task force interviews him and says, what is the guy, shows her the picture, and
the Domino's
he
delivery.
can't ID him. Yes. But he says this dude was huge. He was like 6'5". That's our purpose, 6'6". So they go back, they tack up what we call, they put their big vests on, their M4s, their rifles, their helmets, and they knock on the door. Yeah, they know this guy's a bad guy, and they know the perps in the apartment. So they have a canine out the back, two detectives knocking on the door. Police, open the door. The guy starts shooting, shoots the dog leash of the canine, and the canine goes off. And the perp ends up getting shot, and he lays, I sent you the picture, he lays on the gun, and he's bleeding, that he committed the homicide with and shot the cops with. It was a good shoot.
Yeah, and he shot the leash. He shot the leash, which released the dog. I mean, it's a 1 in a million shot. He couldn't have done that if he wanted to.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
How long were you looking for that guy for?
I'd have to. It was probably a couple of weeks, 2 weeks.
You know, like we're talking about technology and the feds having all these toys. I was in the middle of a case where we had guys shipping cars to China, and a couple of the thieves in the middle of the case did a homicide. And we were looking for one of the guys, and we had his phone number. And we had to bring in, and this is like late 90s, early 2000, the Secret Service, we brought in a couple of guys from the Secret Service, and they brought in like this suitcase. And I mean, this is old technology. I'm not giving away any secrets now, but they said, call his number. So we dial the number, he picks up, and, you know, tries making small talk, he hangs up, and then they're looking at the computer and they go, he's in Queens. So we wait about an hour or so, they go, call him again. We call him again, and then the guy hangs up, and they go, he's in this part of Queens. So like by the third phone call, we knew the block he lived on. And we also, through Westchester County, we had a wiretap with one of his friends. And he called one of his friends and he goes, someone's screwing around with me. Someone's calling up and hanging up. Is it you? And he goes, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Then we were able to narrow it down to which house, and we finally got him out of there. But it is amazing what they can do with phones.
Quick story for a phone.
Yeah.
We had a guy wanted for a homicide that was down in Virginia. He was wanted in Brooklyn. So we go up on the phone. First of all, I have to give a shout out to Art Taru is awesome.
I know.
So they tell me after I'm looking in Brooklyn that the phone is in Virginia. So I'm like, all right. So I go get my travel documents and I have to, you know, go to 1PP and that's a whole nother story.
It's a thing. Well, let me just stop. Yeah, let me just stop you. So first off, TARU is what's the acronym stand for?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I know the two of us, 45 years in the NYPD. We don't know what TARU stands for, but that's our tech guys. There are tech guys, hidden cameras, all sorts of high tech crap. And then what you were just going to say is the NYPD does not want you traveling. They don't. And a lot of times you have to. And it's not like you see on television, like, I'm going to grab a plane ticket and I got to fly out to here. It's got to be vetted from the top. And then they break your balls getting the plane tickets or bus tickets. I mean, it was a big deal for us to drive out to Trenton, New Jersey, Department of Motor Vehicles, and that was a pain in the ass. So I can't even imagine what you had to go through if you were looking to pick up some badass somewhere.
So I got the phone through TARU. The phone is hitting in Virginia, which means the perp is in Virginia. I land and I get the task force in Virginia. They are transferred the phone information and they say, I got bad news. Your phone is in Brooklyn. So I'm like, what am I going to do now? The guy left in the interim to go back to Brooklyn, and I'm in Virginia, and I got nothing to do. So I said, you know what? Let me do some fives. Let me interview his mother because his family was down there. He was last seen in a purple Honda Accord. When we pull up to the mother's house, what do you think pulls up behind us? The purple Honda Accord. So we're watching the Honda Accord from a distance, and we see our perp roll out of the car and roll under the car to get out on the sidewalk side. We're like, I can't make this up. So we apprehend him. It's a good collar. We have a warrant. We start the extradition process. That's over a phone that was not supposed to be in Virginia.
When you brought guys back, did you just throw them in the county jail and let the U.S. Marshals bring them back, or did you guys bring them back?
We brought them back.
What's that like to travel with a perp on a plane?
We were bringing a guy back from West Virginia. And it's not bad bringing a perp back on a plane if everything's followed right. This guy's shackled. My perp was shackled and handcuffed. And we always put the perp in a wheelchair and put a blanket over them and let them feel comfortable. Like, I didn't want walking somebody through an airport with handcuffs and a shackle. It's not right to him.
Right, and his eyes on you and everyone's watching your every move.
You're correct. So I get to TSA, believe it or not, and TSA tells me to uncuff him because he's setting off the metal detector. I'm like, no way am I going to uncuff and shackle this guy.
Gotta run.
We got a supervisor. He said, what are you, a moron? To the TSA agent. Well, by the time we got to the gate, the plane already boarded. So we have to bring the guy out on the tarmac. This is right after September 11th. And he's got a prison jumpsuit, like red and white stripes. He's shackled and handcuffed. And we got to bring him up that staircase to the plane. And then we have to walk him through the aisle and pick 3 seats. Like, take people, get out of the seat, because we have to be in the back of the plane, with nobody behind us. It's procedure. The captain of the pilot wants to meet us. It's a whole thing.
It's a circus.
It's just the whole thing. So we brought him back, and all you got to do, see, the benefit of my job was all he had to do was give the perp to the squad guy. And he closed his case out. He would bring him to central booking. I had very little paperwork.
That's great, because people don't realize when you lock somebody up and then you got to take them to central booking, and then I want to go to the hospital, or the cells are full, and you're married to that guy or girl for as long until they get into that jail and they say you can leave. You're not going anywhere. Have you ever had someone try to take off on you, or like they were thinking about it? You know what I mean? Like you're extraditing somebody and...
No, not that. I had a guy take off at us in Highland Falls, New York. We had a guy he shot a DEA agent or ATF agent, one of the two. We know he promotes rap concerts. So there's someplace up in Highland Falls. It used to be Nicole's wedding venue place, and they run rap concerts. Now, so we're sitting in the parking lot. There's like 3 Fed cars sitting in the parking lot. Like, we know we're not going to find this guy, but we're going to try, give our best effort. Dude, would you believe he walked in and we ID'd him right off the bat? Yes. Oh, I tell you, when you get luck, tell me the last story. So he goes in, we see him come out, and his driver flashes us the high beams, so he knows that who we are. He gets in the car and he takes off. We had locals, state police, full pursuit through the 24, the show, the 24, with not with Kevin Bacon. Who's the other guy? Through the set. He flips the car by the Bear Mountain Bridge. State trooper? I don't know. We had no radios, no phones. Perps are in the snow. It's just like a bad day. But we got the perp.
It was a good day. You got your cuffs on him.
Yep. No injuries. They heard how the task force was like, you guys are awesome. You guys are awesome. So we're sitting in a car in Hoboken, and we're gonna do a warrant on a body. So for like 4 hours, we're sitting in the car, and Jersey is like, how do you guys do it in New York? How do you do it in New York? What makes you so good? So I had a Magic 8-Ball app on my phone. So I shake my phone, and the Magic 8-Ball says, whatever, go ahead, go for it. So I says, let's go. Knock on the door, and the perp says, come in. So we open the door, and this perp is on his freaking knees with his hands behind his back. And the cop from Jersey says, I got to download that app. Total fluke, total luck.
It's funny when you deal with different agencies, especially not like you're working with them day in and day out, just for the day, right? Mm-hmm. And one time, and you never know what you're going to get. And some agencies are great, and some really don't want to have anything to do with you. And I remember one time we had to go out to Jersey, the small police department, and we were going to pick up these African guys that were shipping cars out of the country, but they were doing it in New York City, and they lived out in Jersey. So, we get up at like 4 a.m. We're out in Jersey by 5, and we stop at the local police department. We got our raid jackets on, which as a courtesy, we're just saying, hey, could you give, we're going to be at this apartment pulling these guys out. Would it be okay if you could give us a marked radio car to come along with us, just so the neighborhood knows who we are and everything, right? So we go into this precinct out in Jersey. I'm not going to say the name of the department. We got our raid jackets on, and the desk officer's writing in the blotter. He looks up, and he looks like he's going to have a heart attack. And I go, how you doing, boss? I says, NYPD, we're looking, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, Feds? FBI? I go, No, NYPD. We're just, and he goes, oh, yeah, all right. Yeah. So, like, what's up with him, right? So he gets on the radio, he brings in a sector, and the two cops that show up are perps. One's got a gold tooth, the other one's covered in gold, and it dawns on us, he thought we were the FBI or somebody looking to lock up somebody in that station house. Like, he was a nervous wreck when we walked in there. It wasn't like, oh, here's NYPD, and we went with those guys. We grabbed our perps and we got the hell out of there. It was like, it was the bizarrest thing. You never know what you're going to get when you're working with a different agency.
Yes.
And you were involved in a high-profile case. You were hunting a fugitive that was responsible for the murder of a New York City top high school basketball prospect, Tashina Chicken Murphy. Tell us about that story.
That was like around the projects at 125th Street and Broadway. And the perp fled to, I believe it was South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. And it wasn't my case, it was my partner's case. And we had the apprehension. I didn't have many high-profile cases, but that was one of the highest-profile cases.
Well, tell that story, how you got him out of the apartment. Wasn't that the one where you went up on the window?
Oh, no, that's another case. You want that one?
You caught the guy responsible, right, for killing that basketball prospect, I would hope.
Yes. Yes, we did. We caught him in South Carolina.
What was the one you were telling me the other day about the guy with outside the window? You were outside the window?
Yes. A perp committed the homicide. He was apprehended, I think, by the 4-2 squad. And while he was in jail, while he was on Rikers Island, he called another guy to murder the witness that was going to testify against him. He didn't know that. So the guy did the murder. He followed orders. And when we found him living with another perp on parole for homicide. So we interview the super, and the super says, yeah, he's up there. We don't know if the perp is up there or if the guy on parole is up there. We have parole officers going to do a visit because we know that there's a guy on parole there. So we're knocking on the door. It has to be 20 minutes. And all of a sudden, I got nominated to go onto the fire escape and knock on the window. So I knock on the window, and all of a sudden, this beautiful girl I'll never forget it, emerald green bra and panties. I have my windbreaker on, like we said, my shield out around neck, and my gun belt on. So she opens the window and she says, "Who the fuck are you?" Meanwhile, we've been knocking for 20 minutes. You know who we are. I'm on your fire escape with an NYPD windbreaker and a shield around my neck. You know who I am. You're no dummy. So I asked, can I go in the apartment and my goal is to get to the door to let my team in. I'm walking through the apartment and I'm looking and I see our perp under the bed. So I'm there and I'm trying to open the door, but the amount of knocking that we did, we must have jiggled the lock or the hinge or something because the door was off kilter. So I'm thinking to myself, well, I'm going to have to call ESU to get me out of the apartment. Usually ESU goes into the apartment.
And you're trapped in an apartment by yourself with a homicide.
I'm trapped in an apartment with a guy on parolee. No. Who works for parole, New York State parole officer. So I'm texting my partner in the hallway. The perp is under the bed. Everybody comes in. No. We had to, I'm sorry. The super had to take the doors off the hinges so we can get in the apartment. When we get into the apartment for a parole check, we ID the guy under the bed. As it turns out, there was a sawed-off shotgun under the bed with him. And he told us that he would have rolled over and shot us, but he couldn't fit under the bed. Like, you can't roll over under a bed.
No, he was pinned.
Yeah, he was pinned. There were sheets tied up. on the radio. It looked like something from a movie. Down the air. So he couldn't go anywhere. So
he
we
was going
locked
to
him
shoot
up.
it out and then try to go down the sheets.
Yes, that's exactly what we're doing.
You can't make this stuff up. So in 2005, everything changed. You're still on the job when you were diagnosed with MS. How did that affect you?
Yes. I had a lot of questions and no answers. I reached out to people that the job said to reach out to, and no one could give me answers. I didn't want to disclose it to the NYPD because you'd have to go to a department surgeon, and their job, they had two jobs: either send you back to work or survey you off the job. That's it. So I knew those were not two of the options that I wanted, and I spoke to my neurologist, and he says, we don't know when you contracted this disease, so keep going as long as you can. So I did until 2015, and then I retired.
You know, what people don't understand is with the NYPD, and you summed it up perfectly, our health service division, it's in my book NYPD and Law Disorder, there's a chapter entitled Sickness, Health, and Fat Bastards where I explain the NYPD's health service division. And just like you said, you get an injury, they're looking to put you back to work. If the injury, you know, if you think you can qualify for disability pension and you can't do your job, they don't make it easy for you. They ship you off somewhere, and you got to play this game with them for sometimes years. And oftentimes the people that do get the disability pensions either know somebody or they're above the rank of captain, and it just seems like they seem to go right through the door very quickly, where other people can languish with these injuries for years. And, you know, people think that, like, well, you know, there's doctors with the NYPD, but they don't do anything for you. And like you said, if you have an injury or a condition that you're diagnosed with that's not related to the job, so MS, so God forbid you get cancer, and this is pre-9/11 related cancer, or you come down with ALS or something, they go, well, thanks for coming in. You're no longer a member of the NYPD. Like you said, we call it surveying it off the job, and you get to keep your pension to that point. It's not like they're going to find an inside position for you to ride out your time. It's like, well, thanks for coming in. If you do 10 years, you get half your pension. If you do 5 years, you get a quarter of your pension, and that's it. You were smart enough to keep it to yourself and continue to work and continue to be productive until the very end. How many years did you put in?
24.
Yeah, I mean,
but
you
I
love the
back.
job, right? If it was 20, you know, you said, no, I enjoy this.
I felt good. I was on medication in 1991.
And
April
now
of 91.
And now you belong to an MS support group. Can you tell us about that and where people can reach out to them?
Yes. It's on Facebook. MS, if you go onto the MS Society website, you can find support groups. But my support group is in the Outer Banks. It's called MS Support Salt Life. So it's just an MS group, and we meet on Fridays at 3 o'clock at the YMCA and just talk about our illness. But I know that there are police officers on the job that need questions and can't reach out to anybody. And Vic, please give them my contact information, and I will tell them what I went through, and maybe I can help somebody.
Yeah, if you're listening and you're a member of law enforcement and you know you've been diagnosed with MS, you can reach out to me at VicFerrari50, and I'll put you in touch with Mike.
Excellent.
Mike, yeah, no problem. And right now we were talking about this. You're working on a book as we speak. What's the title?
Yes.
And can you tell us about the book?
It's title of the book is Detective to Disabled. My story as a detective with MS.
And you're going to walk us through the whole experience of being diagnosed and what it was like for you to continue to be a member of the New York City Police Department with MS and to finally come out the other side retired, intact with your pension, and now you're helping people.
Yes.
Well, when that book is out, I promise you, I'll have you back on the show and I'll help you promote it.
Thank you, Vic.
I'll do anything for a cop. So, Mike, thank you for reaching out. Oh, is there anything else you'd like to say? Or
Yeah, there's another story that you
Sure.
talk about working with different agencies back. Do you remember Eric Frayne? He's a perp that shot two Pennsylvania state troopers, killed one of them. They were getting off of work, and he shot like a sniper round and killed one trooper. And then when the other trooper came out to help him, he shot him too. One died, one trooper lived. The Marshal Service wound up apprehending him. So we spent 2 weeks in the woods. I'm a country boy. So I was right in my realm.
probably got bitten up by ticks.
Yeah, we were bitten up by everything. I had a blast.
But you finally apprehended the guy.
Actually, the marshals, but not our team, another set of marshals, because they had to rotate us out and in. We were doing like 15-hour days.
Yeah, people don't realize in law enforcement it's not a 9-to-5 job, and you know, you're kind of at the wants and needs of the department, and something like that, it's all hands on. You know, a cop gets hurt or killed, it's all hands on deck for as long as it takes.
Yep.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you for reaching out and being a guest on the show. I'd also like to thank everyone for tuning in, and I'm astonished that after a few episodes, the show actually has a following. My podcast hosting site enables me to see where my listeners are from. The New York City area and the 5 boroughs obviously have the most subscribers, but Kansas City, Missouri is a close second, probably because of my friend Gary Jenkins. He's a former Kansas City detective with a great podcast called Gangland Wire, and I encourage you to check it out. I also want to give a shout out to my listeners in the UK, Reno, Nevada, Fairmont, West Virginia, Minot, North Dakota, Scranton, Pennsylvania, Chino, California for supporting the show. And if you have a business or product you'd like to promote on the show, especially those of you that work in law enforcement, drop me a note on Twitter and Instagram, again, at VicFerrari50, and we'll talk. If you enjoyed the content, please check out my books on Amazon. Type in my name, Vic, Ferrari like the car, where you can preview all my books for free, including NYPD Law and Disorder. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll have another podcast episode out next week. Thank you.
Thank you, Vic.